Hi. I'm Susan, and I fail for a living. That was where you were supposed to say, hello, Susan, like it was a Failures Anonymous meeting. We're going to try it again. Hello, I'm Susan, and I fail for a living. Now you.
Hello, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm guessing that the reason that didn't happen spontaneously the first time is a combination of factors. Perhaps you're an entirely addiction-free audience. Maybe to a person you have never attended nor known anybody who has ever attended an OA, AA, NA, or any of the A meetings. Maybe you're shy. Or maybe it's because there was a little change up in the lingo. If I really wanted to evoke the meeting greeting, I would have had to use a descriptive rather than an action statement. I would have had to say, hi, I'm Susan, and I'm a failure. But I didn't say that. I said that I fail for a living, which in my own defense should be understood as distinct from failing at living. No, what I do is I repeatedly, intentionally, and mindfully make mistakes. And what I have come to understand is that not only does this not deem me a failure, but this, in fact, is the rare and irreplaceable gift that creative work gives to its practitioners. And in fact, these mindful failures are at the heart of an even larger gift that a robust arts ecology gives to a thriving, innovative community. Now, quickly, some definition of terms so that anyone who just heard the term creative work isn't now checking NASDAQ on their phone, because it's going to be one of those squishy talks. For Pete's sakes, we're busy people. No. Okay, let's start with the word creative. What it is. The ultimate dynamic adjective that is applied to people, processes, practices that are iterative, collaborative, fearlessly embracing of terra incognita. The creative person lives for the unknown, for the unmapped. What it is not. A mild-mannered epithet to be used on those people whose values, lifestyles, and practices you don't quite get, all the while sort of tilting your head to one side a la, well, she's very creative. Okay, let's define the arts, what they are. Any of a host of expressionistic means of communication that attempt to capture the uncapturable facets of human life and experience from its most base to its most glorious. The arts take visual, musical, literary, performative forms. They include, but are not limited to, architecture, dance, theater, music, poetry, and a myriad of other forms that haven't even been created yet. What the arts are not. That dilettantish practice that people who are otherwise not equipped for traditional professions pursue. This is a distinction that is still lost on several of my own family members, including my brother, the captain of industry Wall Street broker, who at every family gathering says to me, Susan, how are things in the theater? And finally, let's unpack the definition of arts engagement. What it is, an elastic term, able to hold varying degrees of cultural participation ranging from attendance at a professional or amateur art event to membership in a drama club, a music group, a dance corps, to coursework in visual, musical, or performative work. Here's what arts engagement is not. That time in your child or your day that would be better spent doing something more useful and productive, something more likely to yield a successful graduate adult functional member of society. See, I'm an artist. I'm also a teacher. I'm also a mother. And I'm also convinced that many of our current societal challenges would be good and readily addressed if we embraced the tool of the arts and put it in our collective arsenal, rather than thinking of the arts as something under glass, precious, slightly suspect, and about as deserving of our attention and resources as the practice of knitting sweaters for poodles. Right? Ornamental, but necessary. In her recent and just astonishingly good book, the author, Sarah Lewis, addresses the imperfection of the word failure. Once we begin to transform it, she writes, it ceases to be that any longer. The term slides off the edges of our vision, not only because it's difficult to look at without wincing, but because once we are ready to talk about failure, we often refer to it as something else, a learning experience, a trial, a reinvention. It ceases being the static concept of failure. I love this. I love this idea of failure, semantically and in practice, as a kind of moving target, right? As an idea whose definition we can change according to how we look at it. A quick lesson on this premise from Charles Schulz, who I firmly believe is the face we're all going to see when we finally look our God in the face. Because if the lessons of Peanuts are not life-affirming, deeply ethical parables, then I don't know what is. The specific one that I am thinking about is the story of Charlie Brown and the football. Remember this one? Okay. So it's fall. It's football season. And Charlie Brown wants to brush up his place-kicking skills. So Lucy, ever the giver, offers to hold the football for him so he can get a good running head of steam. All good, right? Wrong. She moves it at the last moment, and boom, he's down. Here comes the lesson part. Next football season, heck, next day. Charlie Brown tries again. He trusts, he runs, she punks him, he's down. And the cycle continues, time and again. So, failure, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's how it goes, right? Except you could look at that moment of falling down and getting back up as something else. You could look at it as hope. You could look at this as a fantastic lesson in hope taught by a big bald kid in an orange shirt. Because instead of walking away mad, he trusts again. He tries again, and on a cynical day, we might say he's a sucker. But I think in the face of all other options present to him, to choose to believe in the best possible outcome one more time is inspiring. And I'm reminded of Samuel Johnson's famous quote about second marriages being the ultimate triumph of hope over experience. And I am personally doubly glad that I grew up learning about do-overs from Charlie Brown and from theater. See, I'm a firm believer that arts engagement is a means to an end, not merely a standalone activity that should be championed for its own intrinsic worth. I think the arts are the quintessential teacher of translating failure into mastery. Many of our most world-changing endeavors, from Nobel Prize-winning discoveries to the masterworks of literature, visual arts, were not, in and of themselves, miraculous accomplishments. No. They were corrections. They were amendments. They were redrafts of previous attempts. And if you look at the lives of those iconic inventors and artists, if you look into the lives of the people leading those fields today, a common denominator emerges. The stuff that most of us would back away from, these people embrace as undeniable advantages. These people fail for a living to their own great benefit and to ours. So where'd they learn that? What teaches us that? I'm going to start with the joined ideas of resilience and rapid prototyping and see how arts engagement might hone those skills. So back to the definitions. Resilience. The term still has as its core the implication of hardy endurance, right? The capacity to withstand the vicissitudes of life and love and crumbling economies. It used to have a kind of starchy, Boy Scoutish patina to it. It smelled a little bit of bless his heart. You know, like, golly, Bob's had a lot of setback, but man, that young man is resilient, right? But now, resilience is the new black. Resilience is cool, and it's not just about withstanding, it's about what you do after the storm. I'm a huge adherent to the Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Which brings me to my other fancy pants terms, which I learned from my friends at Georgia Tech, and that is rapid prototyping. So, literally, compliments of no lesser a source than Wikipedia. Rapid prototyping is a group of techniques used to quickly fabricate a scale model of a physical part or assembly using 3-dimensional computer-aided data design. Okay, if you're like me, that string of words really didn't do anything to help clarify the notion. So what I did, like any good person with a question and working digits, I went to a Google image search. And I discovered a rapid prototyping graphic. And what I found interesting about this graphic is how much it looked like a critical assessment feedback loop that is constantly in play at my theater. We use it intentionally in our organizational structures. We use it subliminally in our rehearsal halls. Now, while the narrative content of the boxes in these 2 graphics isn't exactly identical, the root path is the same. Assess present moment. Next, do a situational analysis. Then, create a vision, a plan to move you forward from your present moment. Then, here comes a somewhat scary part, act on your plan. And finally, the truly scary part, evaluate the relative success of your plan and your actions. And then you're done. Except you're not, because then you start the whole thing again and again, like Charlie Brown in the football, like the getting up 8 part of the proverb, right? Rapid prototyping is nothing more than repeated attempts. Try, fail, learn from failure, try again. My favorite articulation of this comes from Thomas Edison, who reputedly said to an assistant who was just gobsmacked by his unfailing perseverance in his gazillion attempts to create the incandescent light bulb, "Oh, I have not failed. I've just discovered 10,000 ways that will not work." Mastering failure, using it not as an admission or an excuse, but using it, in fact, as an engine for growth, will enable us to better innovate, to better invent, to better create. So, how do we learn, I ask again, this capacity to skate not to where the puck is, but to where it's next going to go? Where is the experiential boot camp for resilient, rapid prototyping? It's in the arts. So I told you I fail for a living, and I do. But because putting that on your business card can just confuse the daylights out of people, my business card says director. Specifically, I direct plays. And with attention to capacity for failure, I'm about to share with you the Cliff Notes version of how to direct a play. Think of this as the idiot's guide to directing. So, first thing you do, you pick a text. Failure lesson number 1. I defy you to find a playwright anywhere who doesn't have multiple drafts of all of his or her plays, and for whom working on a play means correcting the mistakes they made in the last draft. Okay, you've got a play. Now it's time to cast your play. Failure lesson number 2. The definition of a successful actor is a working actor. The reality of a working actor is that for every 20 auditions they attend, they're lucky if they book 1 job. So what are they doing between those failed auditions? They're getting better at auditioning. All right, you have your text, you have your cast, it's time to design. Failure lesson number 3. Brilliant visual artists, be they costume designers, set designers, begin the process with drafting, not rendering, and that distinction is key. A rendering is a beautiful object that represents the shared vision of a designer and a director. Drafting, be it a costume sketch, be it a cardboard model of a set, is made to be altered, to be erased, to be torn up and rebuilt time and again. Okay, got our play, got our cast, we got our design. Now, it's time to go into rehearsal. failure lessons 4 through 4,000. Here is the secret of what we're doing in those mysterious rehearsal halls. We're making epic mistakes on purpose. Because the process of turning 120 pages of text into 2 hours of compelling theater requires a whole lot of rapid prototyping and a wealth of resilience. You hit your head and your heart time and again on the same line, seeking a kind of truth that will make it across the footlights. And that's one line. And once you figured out that one, you have to figure out all the rest of them because every moment in drama is relative to every other moment. Oh, and here's an added wrinkle. We're doing the entire thing on a timeline. That timeline's called opening night. And on opening night, we are going to share the learnings from our failures with people who have paid for the privilege of watching. Some of those people are going to go home that night, and they're going to write about whether we learned anything from our failures for wide distribution. That clock is ticking from the beginning, and the louder it gets, the better we work, because nothing refines your thinking like urgency. Leonard Bernstein once said, to achieve great things, 2 things are needed, a plan and not quite enough time. So, let's be clear about a couple of things. For any of you in positions of influence around education, I would like every school, public or private, to insist that every single kid who goes there participates in a dramatic production that will be seen publicly. Bless you. For those of you that are parents, I got a drum. For those of you that are parents, I'd like you to insist that your kid actively engage in an art form that is difficult to master. And for any of you who are anything less than perfect, I'd like to suggest you take an acting class, or a piano lesson, or stand in front of a blank canvas that is going to be your first masterwork. And I do this not because I want to add to the swelling additions of artists and actors and directors of all the competition I can handle. I do this because I firmly believe that the life experiences your kid will gain from that practice will make them more successful in whatever professional arena they pursue. I believe that your own life experiences in that practice will maybe jog free your current ideas about failure. And I will go so far as to say the absence of arts and arts engagement in your life and in the life of your child will make you less able to get up the 8th time in a world that's going to knock you down 7. The thing that I most want you to walk away with today is I want you to wrestle with the limits of success as your dominant paradigm. Sarah Lewis, whose book The Rise I evoked earlier, writes that the cost of success is that it can block our ability to see when what has worked in the past is no longer working. Creative work lets us see things new. It lets us imagine things never before seen. And imagination is a mighty societal tool that we all can use if we just give ourselves permission, if we just participate in activities that work imagination as a generative muscle. Every one of us fails every day. What if we used the arts to defang that word? What if we thought of failure not as a road-blocking obstacle, but a path-making discovery? The architect Louis Kahn said that art is a journey into the most unknown territory of all, oneself. We do not know our own frontiers. Well, just imagine if it turns out your frontiers are infinite, and you just have to fail a few times to find out. Thank you.